I wake up every morning with the numbers. This is okay. But if you're a new brand, I mean, you have to think about, other things. First of all, what will be your heart share? And how are you going to get that heart share? What will be the standards? What will be the rules to reach, that kind of a heart share in UK or whatever the market, right? And if you can reach, this kind of a heart share, believe me or not, market share, will follow.
I'm Eric Fulweiler, and this is Scratch, bringing you marketing lessons from the leading brands and brains rewriting the rulebook from scratch for the world of today. Hey everyone, my guest today, Deniz Güven, currently CEO of platform XIT. Many of you will know him or recognize the name from the work that he did when he was at Standard Chartered, launching and running Mox, their challenger bank out in Hong Kong. So it's fascinating to get Deniz's perspective. He's not a traditional marketer, he's not a CMO, but he's someone who has been a very successful operator in the challenger fintech financial services space for a while. And a lot of that, of course, comes down to the products that he's built, the teams he's built, but also his perspective on marketing. And so it was really interesting to hear that. I really liked his framework, his philosophy of how heart share leads to market share. And you can definitely see and hear the correlations of what that means in terms of how you build brand and how you build marketing. And then the other thing for me that I'm always interested to get perspectives and advice on from people like Deniz when I talk to them is, how do you drive change? How do you drive innovation? How do you drive a challenger mindset and model within a big established incumbent organization like Standard Chartered? So hope you enjoy this conversation with Deniz. I know I really did. Enjoy. Hey Deniz, how you doing?
Very good, Eric. Good to see you.
Really good to see you too. Good to reconnect after all these years. How are things in Istanbul these days?
Everything is great in Istanbul. Unfortunately, we couldn't, catch up in Money 2020 in Amsterdam. But in right now, I'm in Istanbul. The weather is great, lovely. Everything is beautiful here.
I can't wait to. I actually have been to Istanbul, but it was a very quick trip. It was like a 2 or 3 day trip a bunch of years ago. But I was saying before we press record, I think our first rival retreat, our team getaway that we're going to be doing twice a year, I think will be somewhere in Turkey. So maybe I'll see you when I come down in October.
Great idea. I will be with you guys.
All right, Deniz, let's get into it. I mean, I wish we had recorded the first 20 minutes of this before we actually started the episode, but we'll be able to cover a lot of that ground again. So why don't we just start with a quick introduction? Obviously, I will have introduced you to the guests with the intro that I'll record after our chat, but why don't you tell our guests your story in your own words? Because it's a very, your path, what you've done, it's very interesting. And like I was saying, you're not a CMO, but I think your experience and what you have to share is incredibly relevant and valuable to our audience. So who is Deniz Güven?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Eric. First of all, thank you very much, for having me today. I think having this kind of a conversation with you, it's always great for me because I remember our really early days, which we didn't have mocks at that time. I'm talking about Hong Kong times. You helped me a lot, and we talk about a lot of marketing ideas together. My background is. Most of the time, people, when they ask me, Deniz, who you are, what are you doing? Of course, I had been in banking, around 22 years, and most of the time, this question sometimes, it came to me, from my father, and whenever he asked me, like, Dennis, what are you doing, in banking? Are you a branch, manager? Are you in the treasury? Are you in the credit? What are you doing? Because he didn't figure out for many years, because I remember early 2000s, it was like it was a different story, right? We were like a couple of guys sitting at that corner and building a couple of websites, and suddenly everything changed. Mobile apps, mobile infrastructures, 4G, iPhone, everything changed, and suddenly this trend, these web managers, they became like really different revenue streamers for many businesses, not only in banking. My background is mainly banking, but when my parents, they ask me, my answer is I'm in the trust business. I think, this is the most important thing, in this life, because if whatever you are doing, if you are in the trust business, believe me, you are 51%, successful already. So I worked for many banks in the past. I'm talking about HSBC, BBVA Group, and of course when I first moved to Asia, I was in Singapore and I was covering 32 different markets as a global head in Standard Chartered. Standard Chartered is a great place to work and covering all the emerging markets. I think I learned a lot from this experience. When I say emerging markets, I'm not only talking about Asia, Africa, Middle East. There were a lot of opportunities, and I experienced different markets, different jurisdictions. To how to deal with different problems at the same time with a very very difficult technology stack, risk stack, also the marketing stack. And if you want to deal with these many problems at the same time, you have to organize your mind first and create a operating model to work in this kind of an environment. And it helped me a lot. And luckily I think in 2018 we decided to build a, a future operating model, which some of the people they call them challenger banks or digital banks, which I don't like it because I don't want to label the a bank with a license with this kind of a thing. Because is there any digital bank, or there's do we believe that this is a digital bank, this is a normal bank? I think this kind of labeling is not working anymore. And so that's why I started to build that. You guys helped me a lot, especially starting from positioning. I built the bank Mox. It was just a project with a couple of people. We obtained the license. We got all the JV partners. We sold 34.9% of the company for 210 million to our JV partners in the beginning. They help us a lot to create the daily banking especially in the region. We launched the bank with an entirely new technology stack, with a new mentality, with a lot of talents globally. I think that when I stepped down from my CEO role 6 7 months ago, there were 29 different nationalities, 19 different languages in Mox Bank. So that was that kind of a journey for me. Right now, what I'm doing, we have a London-based angel platform. It's not a fund, it's not VC. We are helping, especially on funding side, but at the same time, we have, three important muscles. One is technology, second one is, of course, service design, and the third one is growth. When I say growth, I'm not only talking about, growth marketing, Eric. I'm talking about, growth. And what I believe, when we talk about, growth, it's also connected with your balance sheet. It's also, connected with your cash flow. So that's my story in a nutshell.
So a couple quick questions based on that. So if you don't like the term challenger bank, what would you call it? Or what do you think people should be calling these startup challenger banks? I'm sorry, I can't think of a different word. So you tell me.
Challenger something, right?
Challenger something. Okay.
Yeah, it could be bank, could be, if you are in FMCG, how are you going to call it, right? My point is here, actually. I remember our first meeting, with the top management team, also the board of Standard Chartered, and I asked two main questions to these people sitting around the table. The first question is, can you defend yourself with your existing operating model from non-traditional players wherever you are? If you're in London, Paris, Amsterdam, Jakarta, Toronto, it's not important. Can you do that? The second question is, can you attack this market or any market with your existing operating model? If one of your answers is no, you have a problem. Okay, you have a problem, and you have to ask these two questions maybe every 6 months to yourself, to understand what's going on in the market, and also with your operating model. So that's why instead of saying, hey, this is a digital bank, neo bank, or virtual banks, okay, the different terms. What I'm saying is, I would prefer to build and run future operating models, okay? And under the future operating models, and the model, could be vary, of course, who you are, what you need, etc., etc. So you can build these future operating models, and under that, technology, risk, digital, product, customer, you should, use them in a totally different way.
Yeah. It is interesting just building on that a little bit, because one of the things that we talk about a lot is how overused the term challenger actually is. It seems like, I mean, certainly in the fintech space, everything is a challenger. Even in the FMCG world, which we do a lot of work in as well, CPG, everything's a challenger. And even some of the traditional businesses out there are starting to call themselves challengers. And I think it's really interesting because the term challenger is actually a statement of intent, not accomplishment. You're saying that you want to do something, but what we're all about as Rival, and why it's interesting having conversations with people like you, is what does it take to build a true successful challenger? Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to, can you actually disrupt the industry that you're in? And ironically, if you're successful, you become, the new incumbent, and then you need to keep yourself consistently evolving and innovating. And I really like that framework of, can you defend yourself and can you attack the market? One of the ways that I think about it is, which I think gets you to the same place, but is a little bit of a different prompt. If you were going to start things over again from scratch today, right? How would you do it differently? Because that shows you where the gaps are, where someone could attack you or you're not able to attack the market. Now, obviously, if you are a 10-person startup like we are, that's much easier because we literally did that exercise 6 months ago when we launched. And that led us to things like being fully remote, like being somewhere between a consultancy and an advertising agency, focusing on the technology that we want to build as well as the services. We were able to design it from scratch. If you're Standard Chartered, it's a lot harder, but actually I think you have a bigger opportunity if you get the right people, the right process, and lastly, the right technology in place by doing things like what you did at Mox. So it's really interesting to hear you think about it, because I think that I can see why that prompt and that question, and obviously you and who you are and the team and business you were able to build, I can see how that unlocked the right conversations within Standard Chartered.
Yeah, my point here, actually, there are, I think, a couple of things here. The first of all, I would hire, a couple of roles, earlier. Okay, this role thing, is super important. And to be honest, in my experience, yes, we built a bank, from scratch, perfect. But I think, a bit late, to hire, a couple of roles. And the roles are not important, but I'm talking about, critical journey partners, right? I mean, I'm not talking about, the seniority or, junior people, or, the titles. The most important thing is, you need, some journey partners. And these partners, should be there starting from day one, or at least, 1.1, right? I'm not talking about, day two, because, sometimes you want to do many things, but if you can't hire the right talents, doesn't work, properly. And sometimes, it takes, more time and, costly, right? This is the first thing. And I would do, something differently, which is actually sometimes what you feel. I mean, you want to be, super perfect, before launch. I mean, I'm not against it. Don't take me wrong, but there's always a smarter MVP, or we can call it like, most lovable product, right? I mean, MVP is a bit dangerous, and most lovable product. I always believe that, the desirability part of the project, or the platform, or whatever the service, it's critical. And if you feel that, there is this desirability here, I mean, you should launch it. I mean, and of course, in banking, I'm coming, with a lot of uh, DNA of, like, how I can accept this risk, how I can accept, this kind of stuff. This doesn't mean that, you can't launch it. So that's why, the cost of time, the cost of, the timing, it is super important. I think, these two things are. I would
I think timing,
love
I mean,
to change it.
I would take it a step further. I think timing or speed, the ability to move quickly, the ability to get to market quickly, because not only, particularly in a space like challenger banking or whatever you want to call it, in new markets, the ability to get there first is, of course, such a huge advantage. But more importantly, the faster you can ship code, ship product, ship content marketing, or anything about your brand, the faster and more often you're going to be able to get feedback from the people that you're actually building it for to figure out whether or not it's the right thing. And so I actually think that the calling it the strive for perfection actually gives it too much of a positive spin, because I think, having worked with a lot of businesses, it's not about that. It's about people trying sometimes to protect their turf or feel like they need to be involved in making a decision, or subjectivity that doesn't actually have to do with what the audience and the customer actually thinks and needs. So I actually think if you trace, I don't think there's really a way to do this, but if you traced a lot of the vulnerabilities or inability of big incumbent organizations to capture new markets, to defend themselves or attack, like you talked about, I think a lot of it comes down to that.
Well, Eric, totally right. And what you mentioned, for example, the subjective, objective things, right? There are some things, that are super straightforward. But I mean, if you are talking about, design, I mean, for example, in my experience, what happened, we started with a huge ethnographic research, and I never, go somewhere with the board members or, with someone, hey, I believe this should be like that. I mean, this is the most dangerous thing, for your business. There is no I, there is no me, you, or someone. There's a target group there, for your business, and this is the research. This is, all, the continuous, testing results, and this is our target. Hey, as Deniz, I'm the CEO. This is my experience, and design, should be like that. I mean, this is not a great touch. You are not helping your business. I mean, of course, I have my hands, because of my experiences, but at the same time, you have to be a bit objective and give the freedom, to the team, if you have the right team, of course, to run and proceed it. I think that is quite crucial.
So we've gotten through one question. We're 15 minutes in. It's great. No, I think it's the sign of a good conversation. But so I want to ask, and I like to ask this question of most guests, but I particularly want to ask it of you, which is, what is a brand or business that you are really fascinated by or really into right now? And the reason I want to ask it of you is because you are involved in so many different businesses, not only through Platform XIT and the investment work that you're doing, and you mentioned how many investments you've made in the 9 months that it's been online, but also you go to your LinkedIn and you have to scroll a couple pages down to actually get to your full-time role, because you're involved as a board advisor, as a strategic advisor, as a board member to so many different businesses. So you are one of the people that clearly has such a pulse on what's going on, especially in the fintech world globally. What are, if you had to pick a couple businesses that you're really excited about right now, what are they and why?
Yeah, sure. I think, I'm not looking, from a very traditional angle anymore. And these last 7 8 months, that helped me a lot, to understand, what's going on outside. Because, when I was in Mox, of course, my focus was, entirely the bank, running that, building, more, services, to make money, also, help the customers in Hong Kong and the region. But right now, I think, this period, I met, a lot of talented, and different minds globally, and I learned, many new things. Um, my approach, to the businesses right now is a bit different. I can give you an example. I think you mentioned about this, right? The timing, etc. Everybody, 6 months ago, everybody wanted to launch a exchange platform, and on the exchange platform, most of the time, I'm talking about crypto, but different assets as well. And but today, just because of crypto, all the exchange players, they are thinking, I mean, it's not an easy time, for everyone, because of the markets, and they have to, change the strategy. And a lot of fintech entrepreneurs right now, oh, we can't launch it. So my point is, what is the real wave that you have to follow off, or you have to, jump on? Because I mean, obviously, there was a huge, opportunity, for exchange, exchange, platforms, to make money because of the commissions. But was that the real opportunity, which is or will be future proof, or the real opportunity is different? For example, what I'm focusing on right now, I'm focusing on fractional economy. So what is fractional economy? I mean, instead of focusing on couple of assets or people or products, I would prefer to understand what will happen in the next 24 to 36 months in the world, in different markets, with this kind of an inflation. In this kind of an inflationary environment, what will be the products and how the people, will consume the things, in a different way. Are they going to consume the things like today? Hey, I want to get a mortgage. Why? Because I'm going to buy this apartment which is £2 million in Chelsea, and I need 1 million mortgage. Or is it going to be something like, hey, I don't have 2 million, but at the same time I want to buy this in a fractional way, and this fractional way, with the help of this fractional way, there will be second hand market with all liquidity. And whenever I want to go to liquidity side, I can sell it, or I can make money as like an investment. So what I'm talking about, fractional housing, fractional energy, fractional coffee beans, fractional everything, fractionalize any kind of assets globally. It's going to be extremely important. And instead of thinking, hey, I'm a platform coming, I can provide you, for example, five £5 fractional Google's stocks, or whatever it is, right? I To be honest, you can buy this Google fractional, or whatever, anywhere in the world right now, almost, right? It's becoming long tail. What I'm saying is, these people globally, they want to save, and they want to invest in a different way. And what will be the behavior behind it? What will be the new habits? And how are you gonna transform the financial products with the help of the technology, which is sounds like for example, blockchain smart contracts will help a lot to fractionalize the things. And all this notary system could be easily changed in the future with the help of the government, which will give a lot of liquidity for everyone. And managing this kind of a system, liquidity plus the treasury systems globally, 24/7 real time, and people, they can invest in a different shape and form. I think this is something which we have to look at it. And if you are talking about what I'm focusing on right now, this is one area that I'm focusing on, but not with a traditional way, because I don't want to be like a, hey, of course, Eric, I can easily answer you. I really like decentralized projects, and I want to invest in what is decentralized, and how are you going to do that? I think we have to start from the customer, and behavioral changes are coming and will come in the next couple of years. If we can understand what will happen here. Everybody's talking about big reset, right? What is big reset? When we have big reset, how are we going to position our products and our platforms in a different way? This is quite critical. Other than that, I mean, this is one area which I use it as an example right now. Of course, I believe embedded finance it's going to be important. Eric, I'm sure you will ask some marketing questions to me. So embedded, when I say embedded finance, I also believe that there will be embedded marketing, and what will be embedded marketing in the future, and how are we going to position ourselves for the embedded marketing. It's going to be another topic for us. But these are the areas. I don't want to give a really usual suspects. Like, hey, I'm on blockchain. Well, I don't believe it. I still, I still believe that, all the innovations, all the new services, will come from customer side, which we have to, understand, quite carefully.
What do you think embedded marketing could look like?
Oh, such a lovely question.
You kind of teed me up for it. I couldn't not engage.
So embedded marketing, so what is embedded finance, first of all, right? There are a lot of SaaS or BaaS players, like bank as a service, open banking, APIs, all these open API platforms. We have been talking about these things since 2015, 16, right? And some of the governments, some of the markets, they open these platforms. UK is a great example. I'm not saying that super successful, but at least there are a lot of tries in the market coming from both sides. But what I see actually, embedded finance, it's all about, you know me, right? As a part of Standard Chartered in the past, I'm also a big fan of Liverpool. And this Liverpool thing, there's one rule in Liverpool, right? Never walk alone. And as a part of never walk alone, I think this is quite critical. You need to understand how you position yourself. When I say embedded marketing, embedded finance, you have to go with some people, whatever however you want to define your JV structure. When I say JV, because I really believe that JVs will be the main differentiators in the future. And it's not like, hey, I have an ecosystem and these guys are helping me on marketing, these guys are helping me and we are marketing partners. I don't believe this is working. But JV structure, if you have the right construct with the right people, I believe that this is the killer thing. While you are doing this in this kind of a structure, how you position your data and data embedded marketing, these are these are connected. It's super easy to use your first party data most of the time, Eric. But the problem is there, I know many organizations, I'm not only talking about startups, even big organizations, they don't know how to use their first party data. And but at the same time, ambitiously, they want to use the third party data, which could be anything outside. Perfect. It's a great ambition. Why don't you? I mean, to do that, they want to focus on the technology and marketing tech. Um, does marketing tech solve all the problems, or you have a right marketing operating model to connect this data and how you are going to use and build the services on top of it? That's a question mark. But my point is embedded finance, it's all about second party data and how you connect it with your first party data. Second party data is mainly coming from your partners, real partners, and how you are going to position yourself in the middle of all these things, connected to the customer life cycle with the right services and products. This is embedded finance. I'm not talking about hyperlinks or some connections between this platform and that platform, sister apps. These are easy. I'm sure there are tons of marketers outside, but the idea is connecting to this kind of a second party, third party, first party data together. Just an example. I'm sure you are using some of the best challenger banks in UK right now, and they have great platforms. Interface is great, which I'm also their users. And when I look at them, most probably they know which iPhone model that I'm using right now. But I have never seen something that they're offering to me directly. Hey, Deniz, you are using iPhone 11, whatever. Okay, and there's a new offer iPhone 14. Why don't you get this from us with this kind of a link, and you do not need to go outside our app. You can purchase it directly. There's also a great cash flow. I mean, there's a second party data, first party data, all together, totally targeted. Just an example, right? And we try and we did similar things in MOX in Hong Kong with Hong Kong Telecom. And it's all about embedded your marketing in a way with the right data.
Okay. So embedded marketing, if I was going to summarize that, is about collecting and storing the right data in a customer-centric way to deliver a better, more effective experience. And it sounded like part of that was also making sure you have the right partners around you and it's embedded within the organization.
Yeah, you explain much better than me.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, you explained it. I just had to try to synthesize. It's interesting. I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but it's catchy. I like it. We'll see if it catches on. So why don't we use that to springboard into, obviously you don't come from a traditional marketing background. You haven't had a CMO role, but obviously you understand marketing. And from an outsider's perspective, it seems like it played a big role in the success of Mox. Thinking about the brand, that's of course where we cross paths originally. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but as a banker or someone who comes from banking, as a product guy, as the CEO of an initiative like Mox and within an organization like Standard Chartered, how did you think about marketing to make it successful with Mox or any other project if you want to talk about that?
Yeah. A very nice question. Not an easy one. There's no one silver bullet, to kill that, right? But I think there are a couple of things, which we try to do that, in Mox. First of all, I think that you are starting from. I mean, you have to understand, what are the real pains, what are the real motivations. Position your brand, properly, and try to be a differentiator, with your brand essences, plus, with the product and the services. There's no product, there's no service or a bank, that you can, hey, my brand is super cool, but, I don't have products. It doesn't work like that, right? I'm saying, for example, many people, they come to me right now, hey, we are a fintech. Perfect. What are you doing? We will. But look at our interfaces. I mean, this is not marketing. This is not branding. That's not enough. Because, being a bank or being a strong brand, it's more than that. And the other part of it, of course, when I try to, build the marketing and marketing team plus, the marketing part of Mox, there were a couple of other things, right? From day one, we said, everything will be 24/7 plus real time. And it was, day one. I can't, accept anything like, hey, this is going to be batch. And this is all about, how you design your marketing system. Most of the time, people, they ask me, Deniz, marketing is not the most important thing right now. You are building a bank. But from day one, maybe day zero, you have to think about, how you are going, architectural part of your marketing. It's not only about offers. It's not about, how you give the cashback. It's not only, how you do your campaigns, with a targeted way. I'm not talking about it. Starting from data. And what is data lake for you? I mean, is it only a database, or do you want to use, all these, first, second, third party data all together? Starting from that architecture and going forward, how you connect the data and your marketing, to your products, to your services. It's not like, hey, I'm going to, put these tags, to my, mobile app, so I can see any kind of, funnels, starting from onboarding, to my products. Perfect, great idea. But I think, everybody's trying to do this right now, and it shouldn't be a rocket science. The most important thing is over the air, can you change it, immediately? For example, can you deploy something, if you see, something in the production, which, if you are seeing, a couple of bottlenecks, like, hey, this product is not working because of this. We are losing, at least, 75 people or 1,000 people in the last 3 hours, in this funnel, in this session. How can we change it over the air, real time, deploy it, run it, test it? I mean, this is marketing, right? I mean, you have to build, this kind of a stack, and on top of this stack, you have to put, right people, and these right people, they have to think out of out of the box, and shouldn't be like, um, hey, we are going to use, influencers, really. But of course, obvious, right? Everybody wants to use influencers, but these influencers, are they going to be connected with your product, and how you are going to, measure it, in a different way? I'm not only talking about, the connectors between. I think it's super important. This is all about, how you position the marketing, for your bank or an organization.
Yeah. It's drawing out a bit of what you're talking about, and tell me if I'm not getting this right, but one of the conversations I have a lot, particularly with startups and scale ups, not just within fintech, but of course we do a lot in the fintech world. A lot of those businesses don't have a lot of marketing DNA in the early teams, right? And I think there's a lot of misperception about what marketing actually is. A lot of people think marketing is advertising. They think marketing is, the billboards and the TV campaigns and the bus wraps and all that stuff. I don't know if you remember, but in the London fintech scene, maybe 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of conversations from the Monzos and the Revoluts, et cetera, about we don't do marketing. They do marketing because marketing is anything that connects the product to the customer, if you're thinking about it right. And so I think what you're talking about of it's kind of my interpretation of it, which is how I think about it as well, is yes, there's a part of it that's the promotion, that's the communication to the market, but it's much more about how do you connect the product in the right way to the customer and their needs? Or actually, I should put that the other way. How do you work backwards from the customer and their needs to connect them into the product that you're building? I want to, you've talked about marketing stack a few times. So break that down. How do you think about the marketing stack? How did you go about building it at Mox? Or if you were advising a startup, how would you say, hey, here's what you should do to build your marketing stack?
I mean, first, look at your customer, look at the data, but especially if you're a startup, there's no data, right? That's a critical part. But at least, you need to understand your data structure and marketing stack. My other rule was, if it is not, measured, if it is not, data or real time or performance based, that was not marketing for me. And I separated, them, into two parts. Doing branding, it's a very important thing, if you're a new business. And do branding. I'm not against it. But at the same time, if we are talking about, real marketing, it should be measured, performance based. And, you have to, see all of these things, from day one. As you said, Eric, in the very beginning, you could be, super busy. And business, why? Because you are building tons of other things, and marketing is the last thing. Shouldn't be. Now, this is the biggest mistake, you shouldn't do that. Why? You should, design it from day one all together. This doesn't mean that, you have to build it, from day one. You can wait it, but at least, architecturally, your technology team, your product team, your marketing team, should be all together. This is going to be the way, we will go. But of course, we can prioritize, right? There's a backlog, certainty, and this backlog, most of the time, backlogs, don't allow you, to do everything, at the same time. But design it, architect it, earlier.
So before we wrap up, because we're almost up on time, at the very beginning when you were introducing yourself, you said, I'm in the trust business. What does that mean? How do you think about that? And what advice would you give to people listening if that's been a key part of your success?
Trust business, mainly, I don't want to label the banking, like banking, right? Because people, they always ask me, Deniz, are you a technologist? I'm not a technologist. But I understand technology quite well. I'm not a marketer. I'm not a, banker entirely, but I know banking, in and out. The thing is, I try to, see myself, as a trusted, partner, and doing, a trust business, for everyone, wherever, I am. And most of the time, I'm doing, fintech businesses or, financial institutions. And this is the most important thing, because if you don't believe that, you are doing a trust business, if you believe that, hey, technology, with the help of technology, I'm going to, kill this market, you have to think about, the trust first. Who is going to use you? Why are they going to, use you, your platform? And what is the trust element, there, that, people, they will understand, and they will see, perceptional, they will perceive it. It's going to be important. In Mox Bank, for example, we try to focus on this, most of the time. Give the trust first, and then give the other things, after that. And I think, it works. And most of the time, I'm using, this. I know. This is just an important thing, to explain. Think the experience, trust. I think that's all about, having getting the highest heart share instead of, market share, right? And I remember, starting from our first board meeting, in Mox, they asked me, Dennis, what will be our market share? When will we see the, break even, operational, profit? Very normal, right? I wake up every morning with the numbers. This is okay. But if you're a new brand, you have to think about, other things. First of all, what will be your heart share? And how are you going to get that hard share? What will be the standards? What will be the rules to reach, that kind of a hard share in UK or whatever the market, right? And if you can reach, this kind of a hard share, believe me or not, market share, will follow. It is easy, to create the market share. But if you don't have the desirability, if you don't have the right market share, hard share, skills in the bank, in the organization, in your talent pool, in your marketing team, in your product team, I don't believe that you can get you can get enough market share from that market.
I love it. All right, Dennis, we're going to wrap things up. I know we only got 2 minutes, so 3 quick questions. The first is, what is one thing people should do differently after listening to this conversation?
That's tough, Eric. I think, well, I can't say something like this, but um, please, no, I really want back to the listeners. Please look at the markets and the changing habits and motivations on the consumer side, instead of just following couple of not sustainable waves or trends.
Second question, if people want to find out more about what you're up to or connect with you, we'll drop a link to Platform Excite in the show notes, but anything else that they should look up?
I mean, LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile, I always, answer. Don't worry, I'm 24/7, I will answer your inquiries, from there.
Great. And last question, who should we have on the show? Who would you recommend as a future guest? Because of course we were, trading messages and I've been wanting to get you on the show for a while, but David Breer recommended when I saw him in Amsterdam that we get you on. But who would you recommend that we look up?
I mean, I think, I have, two, because there's one, I don't want, pass it back, to Jason Bates, but I really enjoy, listening,
He'd be good. We're
Jason.
emailing with him as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mr. Bates, he's doing great. Whenever he explains something, I'm getting a lot of articulation on my side. So that's why that will be lovely. And the other thing is, I don't want to share a name, but I really want to. I would love to listen someone from Asia directly, because there are a lot of things happening there, especially in Singapore right now. There will be a couple of new banks, new operating models. I think that would be lovely to hear their experiences as well.
Great. All right, Dennis, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm
My
sure our
pleasure.
audience did too, and it was great to see you again.
Thank you very much.